You have picked the best book, you've read it before, you know that children love it, it connects to exactly what you're learning right now. So, what's wrong? I'm going to go through 4 barriers that early childhood educators come up against during their story time. I'm going to break these into 2 barriers from the perspective of an early childhood educator and the other 2 barriers from the perspective of the children. Let's get into this. First, I want to talk about positions. It's really important as early childhood educators that we sit in a way that is not only warm and inviting to children during story time, but in a position where children can clearly see the story and your face without craning too much. Nowadays in early childhood education, especially here in Australia, it seems to be the fashionable thing to have really big, comfy, cozy chairs for the teachers to sit on when having group time. The aesthetics of it is beautiful, but in reality, they are situated so high up that when the children are paying attention and in group time, they're sitting with their necks craned back so they can get a look at the story and the teacher. A good rule of thumb is making sure that really you are just one step up higher than where the children are at. If they're on the ground, you're on a smaller chair. If they're on a smaller chair, you're on a bigger chair. If there's too many steps missing in between, it creates an imbalance there and it makes children crane their necks way too back in order to pay attention and follow along. Eventually, it's going to hurt. Think about it when you go to the cinema. A lot of times we avoid the first 3 rows because we know if we're all the way at the front, we have to crane our heads all the way back in order to make sure that we can see the whole picture. That's why we sit all the way back. Well, I know I do. Sit all the way back so we can get a great visual of the screen without hurting our necks. Barrier number 2 that I hear from early childhood educators all the time is that they feel really silly when they read. They're unsure of the voices, they're unsure of their intonation, and sometimes they feel very self-conscious sitting up the front, having all the eyes on them. They're scared that they're going to read something wrong, they're going to sound too silly. Are children going to pay attention? Are they going to lose their focus? These are all really valid points and things to take on board, but I can guarantee you that children learn a lot better when you have a lot of intonation in your voice. If you slow everything down and read in a wide variety of pitches, it's definitely going to captivate the children's interest. Let me give you a quick example of a couple of pages, what it sounds like when you read slowly and with lots of varying intonation in your books as compared to just reading it monotone. Here is the blue sheep. And here is the red sheep. Here is the bath sheep. And here is the bed sheep. But where is the green sheep? I'm going to do that again now. And I'm not going to use any intonation, and I'm going to read it a little bit more faster as I would do a conversation. Here is the blue sheep, and here is the red sheep. Here is the bath sheep, and here is the bed sheep. But where is the green sheep? Now, it's true you may feel quite ridiculous when you make things so animated. But I really guarantee you, it is so much easier for a child to be captivated by your voice, to see the lips as you word and you mouth out the words, than it is when you rush through it. That is all part of the process. That is all part of literacy. Literacy is not just reading the story, but understanding and being able to follow along with the story. Now, barrier number 3. This is the first one that I have from a children's perspective. From the children's perspective, it is really important to make sure that your children are in the right position. And what do I mean by that? What I like to do before I start is to say, girls and boys, I'm going to be reading this story, and this is where the book is going to be when I read it. Are you sitting in the right position? Can you clearly see? There is always 1 or 2 children that say, no, I can't see, someone's head is in the way. Perfect. Go move to a spot, settle down, and see if you can clearly see my story. You're in no rush. Give everyone a moment and a chance. If they need to shuffle back, if they need to shuffle away so they're not encroaching in someone else's space or touching someone else, this is the opportunity for everyone to find a spot that feels good for them. The problem is when we skip this step, it becomes a niggling thing in the back of the mind that takes away from the story. Think of it like when you have a label in the back of your top that you can feel. It doesn't matter how captivating the story is that you are listening to or how engaging the movie is that you are watching, that label is scratching, and that tiny little thing in the back is taking away your focus, and it's making it hard for you to follow along. This too is the same when you don't have the right spot, when someone is a little bit too much in your space, when someone's rocking and they keep bumping into you, when you can't see over someone else's head. All these things take away from the story. This is why we want to make sure that the teacher's in the right position and the children are in the right position. So let them find a spot which is good for them. The second barrier that I find that children have is being able to hear the teacher, and that is because of either the acoustics of the classroom or because of the acoustics of being outside. Normally, when a child can't hear properly, sometimes they might speak up and say, hey, I can't hear. Other times, they just turn away. You no longer have their attention span, and so they start drifting and they start looking at other things. And it's not because they're not interested, they can't hear you properly. There could be babies crying in another room. There could be traffic driving by. There could be, pots and pans from the kitchen. So many different things that are taking away from the experience of listening to the story. And that's not what you want. You've gone through all this effort to plan this group time, to plan this story time, and to pick the right book. What you really want is for that story to land correctly and for that child to be able to get the most out of that lesson. So, what can we do to try and combat this? Pick a time where you know that some of the other classes may have gone outside and you can stay inside. Swap your outside and inside time so there are less children around you. Or take your story time outside, maybe with less children around, so when everyone is in, you're out. Try to think of different ways that try and quieten the room around you. Closing your doors, closing your windows, sitting on a mat also helps to cushion the acoustics in the room for you. I really hope these tips work for you like they work for me. Every time I sit down and do my story times, I run through this 4 checklist. If you want a more broken down way of how to read a story, please click on this video right here where I go through 6 other components, from picking the story to using the correct questions in story time that help elevate my story time with the children. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next class.